It started with a single frame, shaky, poorly lit, taken through the windshield of another car. Just headlights, a black vehicle at a red light, then the blink of a turn signal, and the caption underneath, "Someone tell me this isn't who I think it is." No one tagged names, no one mentioned BTS, but the comments didn't wait. The shape of the jaw through the glass, the posture of the driver, the way his hand rested on the wheel, too familiar to misread, but just unclear enough to deny. And beside him, a passenger, blurred, turned slightly away, hair up, phone in her hand. That was all. And still, it was enough. That's V's car. The rims matched the ones from his Vogue shoot. He's not supposed to be in Seoul tonight. Is it even him? Tell me it's not him. At first, it felt like a mistake, a look-alike, a misfire. But more clips came. No plates visible, no faces confirmed. Just that same black vehicle, seen again in Mapo, then somewhere near Itaewon, then again off Dongho Road, always moving, always at night. Too fast to follow, too slow to disappear, and always the same question building under the surface. Why would he drive like this, tonight, here, now, with someone in the passenger seat? It wasn't a date, it wasn't a statement, it wasn't hidden well enough to be secret, but not open enough to be safe, and it wasn't even that late yet. People were still out, fans were still watching. Someone had to notice, and someone did. By the time the second video surfaced, the timeline was already fractured. A user posted a short clip, 3 seconds, maybe 4, where the same car could be seen slowing down near a curb in Hanam-dong, not stopping, just hovering, then pulling off again. The window on the driver's side was down, not all the way, just enough. That's when the panic started. It wasn't the footage itself that made people spiral. It was the voice in the background, someone off camera in disbelief, muttering, "Wait, that's him, right? Is that really him?" Suddenly, the vague became sharp. Not confirmed, but sharp, because it wasn't just a car anymore. It was the timing, the route, the pattern. Why is he circling Hanam this long? He's passed the same street 3 times. They're not even trying to go anywhere. This feels aimless. Fans started pulling GPS timestamps from every post. Someone tried to triangulate gas station footage. Others traced back Instagram stories from bystanders, blurred backgrounds, someone laughing in a parking lot, another angle of the car at a red light. Each piece added nothing, and somehow too much. There was no interaction, no glimpse of the girl's face. But the placement said enough. The shape of her turned profile, her elbow resting on the door. The fact that she didn't flinch at the phone in her hand when a flash passed by. That was what unsettled people most. Not the possibility of her presence, but the ease of it. Why isn't she hiding? Does she not care? Why is the window open at all? Why would he let her sit like that? The discourse split fast. One half begged others to stop. It's just a drive. You don't know it's him. It's none of our business. The other half refused. He knows how this works. You don't roll through Central Seoul in that car without knowing who sees you. If it was innocent, why this time? Why this place? And then someone found the still. A traffic cam screenshot, not clear. But in the passenger window, you could just make out the shape of a smile, faint, tilted toward him. Just for a second. It didn't confirm anything, but it made everything worse. Not because it looked intimate, but because it was too normal, too present, too comfortable for the tension fans were already holding. The smile didn't belong to an accident. It belonged to someone who didn't think they were being watched. And yet, they were. The comments started deleting themselves. People who first denied it began editing their posts, not to take them back, but to hide the timestamps. Because the more they tried to convince themselves that it wasn't him, the more obvious it became that he could have made a different choice. He could have left later. He could have taken another route. He could have kept the window closed. But he didn't. And for fans, that wasn't about romance. It was about context. Not, who is she? But, why here? Why now? Why like this? By the next afternoon, the clips had stopped, but the threads hadn't. No new footage appeared, but the conversation metastasized. Every Discord server, every group chat, every alt account that usually stayed quiet lit up at once. Not with theories, not with declarations, with something stranger, with hesitations. Because something didn't feel right. People kept saying it. This isn't how he moves. This isn't how they do it. Even dispatch wouldn't get him like this. It wasn't the girl. It wasn't even the possibility. It was the mess, the lack of choreography, the sloppiness of the route, the absence of tinted windows, the openness of the streets, no umbrella team, no shadow SUV, no fake trail, no reason to be in those specific neighborhoods on that specific night unless he wanted to be, and wanted to be seen. And that's what triggered the shift. Not jealousy, not heartbreak, something closer to betrayal of expectation. He knows this city watches him. You can't drive under the Mapo Bridge without a dozen fans spotting you. Why choose that street? Why the gas station with security cams? People began breaking down the timeline, not to find her, but to understand him. A fan found an old video from months ago, a live where he joked about driving late at night alone, calling it peaceful. That video resurfaced now like a wound, because this time, he wasn't alone. And it wasn't peaceful. It was traceable. It was dissectable. It was so easy to follow, and so hard to excuse. He didn't even try to lose them. He passed the same intersection twice. They stopped for coffee. There's a receipt timestamp at 12:37 a.m. They weren't sneaking. They weren't rushing. They weren't hiding. And that was the problem. Not the fact that he was with someone, but that he let himself be with someone there. In a car that had been seen before. In a zone where fans sit on rooftops with cameras. In neighborhoods where every entrance and exit has a digital eye. It felt deliberate, and yet, not enough to call it a statement. Too soft to be a reveal. Too loose to be a mistake. Too confusing to make sense. And that's what twisted the tension even further. Because the fans weren't fighting about whether it was him anymore. They were fighting about why it didn't feel like him at all. By the fourth night, her face still hadn't surfaced. And no one cared if it ever would. The story had moved past her. At some point, the girl became background, a silhouette, a placeholder for the bigger, harder question that fans couldn't let go of. What was he trying to do? And who was it meant for? Because if it was personal, it was reckless. If it was public, it was too quiet. And if it was nothing, it was too visible. No one said his name out loud anymore. Posts started referring to him indirectly. Just he, or you know who, or the increasingly common, the one who should have known better. Old clips were dragged back up. Fan meet interactions, award show speeches, quotes where he'd said, "Privacy is sacred," or "There are things I'll never share." They were pulled into threads like legal exhibits. Not to attack, but to measure the distance between what he used to say and what had just happened. And it didn't stop there. People began to recount the exact location of where the car paused for longer than it should have. An intersection near a 24-hour convenience store. A few steps from a wall that fans had, for years, treated like neutral ground. A place known as safe. He knows we wait there. He's seen us stand there during birthdays. That spot. That's not neutral anymore, is it? That was the cut. Because it wasn't a stranger walking through a crowd. It was him turning onto a street he knew they watched, and not turning back. Some said he didn't care. Others said he made a misstep. A few insisted it was planted. A media trap, a decoy, a performance. But that didn't hold. It didn't feel like a stunt. It felt like a fracture. And then came the silence. His name stopped trending. Not because interest faded, but because no one wanted to feed the algorithm. Because maybe if they stopped clicking, stopped tagging, stopped refreshing, it would undo the moment. But it didn't. A fan wrote in a locked account, "I'm not mad he was with someone. I'm just still stuck on why he chose to be there. With her. In that car. At that hour. Like it wouldn't matter." It was liked over 12,000 times in 2 hours. Then, quietly deleted. Not out of fear, out of exhaustion, because it was never about her. Not anymore. No apology came, no denial, no cryptic post, no late night live, no soft distraction drop. Just 3 days of nothing. And that nothing said too much. The silence didn't calm things. It destabilized them. What began as confusion hardened into discomfort. Not because anyone wanted a scandal, but because now the silence was louder than the night he drove through it. People stopped asking who she was. They started asking who they were to him. Those fans on the sidewalk, in the cafe window, waiting at the light. The ones who saw, hesitated, pulled their phones too late, and then realized he didn't look away. That became the moment. Not the girl, not the car, not even the route. The moment he could have turned his head, but didn't. "He saw us," a fan tweeted, "and he just kept driving." Some defended him still. "He's human." Others whispered, "So are we." Then a photo resurfaced. Not new. Over a year old. A fan sign. V, smiling, leaning forward, taking a gift. A moment etched in someone's memory as the time he saw me. Now reposted with a different caption. I don't think he remembers. The mood turned cold. Group chats that once glowed with his name now sat muted. Stan accounts went private. Headers disappeared. Edits froze mid-render. Because how do you edit someone back into a world he chose to step out of? Not with a scandal, but with indifference? It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't defiance. It was detachment. He didn't fight to hide. He didn't fight to explain. He just didn't fight at all. And that's what no one knew how to hold. He could have waited. He could have taken another road. He could have chosen silence in private. Instead, he chose silence here, in the wrong part of the city, at the wrong hour of the night, with the wrong window down. Long enough for fans to see too much, and not enough to forget.